the old grandfather sat on his weathered wooden porch, the same porch where he would spend countless evenings watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Today, however, his heart was heavy as he watched his grandson Michael kick stones along the gravel driveway, shoulders slumped in defeat. Michael had just turned 25 last month, full of dreams and ambition, but today, those dreams felt shattered. He had just lost his job at the marketing firm, laid off after only 8 months. His savings were nearly gone, his girlfriend had left him last week, and his college debt felt like a mountain he would never climb. "Come here, son," the grandfather called gently, his voice carrying the wisdom of 78 years on this earth. "Sit with your old grandpa for a moment." Michael reluctantly dragged his feet toward the porch, slumping into the old rocking chair beside his grandfather. "I don't know what to do anymore, Grandpa. Everything I touch turns to dust. Maybe I'm just not cut out for success." The grandfather studied his grandson's face, seeing so much of himself in those defeated eyes. He remembered his own dark moments, his own failures, his own nights when sleep wouldn't come because worry had made itself too comfortable in his mind. "Michael," he said slowly, "let me tell you about 2 seeds. This story changed my life when I was about your age, and maybe it'll help you too." He leaned back in his chair, his weathered hands folding together like old friends meeting after a long journey. "Many years ago, when I was a young man not much older than you are now, I worked for an old farmer named Samuel. Samuel was the wisest man I ever knew, though he never finished high school. One spring morning, I was helping him plant his vegetable garden when he stopped suddenly and picked up 2 seeds from his palm." The grandfather paused, letting the memory settle in his mind like dust after a storm. "Watch this carefully, boy," Samuel told me. He planted both seeds side by side in the exact same soil. Both seeds were identical, same size, same color, came from the same packet. They faced the same dark earth, the same cold spring nights, and they would receive the same amount of rain and sunshine. Michael shifted in his chair, despite himself becoming interested in the story. As the weeks passed, something fascinating happened. The first seed, buried in that dark soil, began to have thoughts of seeds can think. That is, it said to itself, "This soil is too hard and cold. This darkness is frightening and lonely. What if I try to grow and get hurt? What if my roots aren't strong enough? What if I push toward the surface and there's nothing but more darkness waiting for me?" The grandfather's voice grew softer, more contemplative. "What if the other plants are better than me? What if I'm not good enough? What if I try my best and still fail?" So that first seed decided to play it safe. It stayed small, stayed hidden, stayed protected in the darkness when nothing could hurt it. But nothing good could happen either. He looked directly at Michael now, his eyes kind but penetrating. But the second seed, facing the exact same challenges, had different thoughts. It said, "This darkness is only temporary. Every great tree started in darkness. This hard soil isn't my enemy, it's going to make my roots stronger. Every cold night is teaching me resilience. Every challenge is preparing me for the light I know is coming." The grandfather stood up slowly, his joints creaking like old floorboards, and walked to the edge of the porch. "I may not be able to see the sun yet," that second seed continued, "but I can feel it calling to me. I'm going to push through this soil 1 inch at a time, even if it's hard, even if it hurts, even if I'm scared, because staying buried safe is not really living at all." He turned back to Michael, who was now sitting forward, fully engaged. So that second seed began to grow. Day by day, inch by inch. Some days were harder than others. Sometimes the soil felt impossible to break through. Sometimes the darkness felt endless. But it kept growing anyway. The grandfather sat back down, leaning forward toward his grandson. By summer, do you know what had happened? The first seed was still buried, still safe, still protected and completely forgotten. Nobody knew it existed. It had avoided all pain, but it had also avoided all purpose. He pointed toward the massive oak tree that dominated their backyard. But the second seed, it had become that oak tree right there. The same tree that's given our family shade for 40 years. The same tree your grandmother and I were married under. The same tree where your father built you a house. The same tree that's weathered storms, provided homes for countless birds, and dropped acorns that became new trees. Michael stared at the tree, seeing it differently now. That tree faced droughts and storms, hail and wind, lightning and ice. It could have given up 1,000 times, But instead, every challenge made its roots grow deeper and its trunk grow stronger. The grandfather reached over and placed his weathered hand on Michael's shoulder. "Son, you and that seed are facing the same choice right now. You can stay buried in your disappointment, afraid of what might happen if you try again. You can protect yourself from failure by never risking success. Or you can decide that this setback is just soil, dark, hard, uncomfortable soil that's going to make you stronger." Michael's eyes were beginning to fill with tears. "But Grandpa, what if I fail again? What if I'm not good enough? What if then you'll be one step closer to finding out what you are good enough for?" The grandfather interrupted gently. "Michael, let me tell you something that might surprise you. I failed at 7 different businesses before I found success. 7. Your father was turned down for 12 jobs before he found the career that supported our family for 30 years. He squeezed Michael's shoulder. "Every successful person I've ever known has been planted in difficulty at some point. The difference isn't what happens to them, it's how they choose to grow through it. Seeds don't fail when they grow slowly, son. They only fail when they stop trying to grow at all." Michael wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Your job loss isn't your ending, Michael. It's your planting. Your breakup isn't your failure, it's fertilizer for the man you're becoming. Your debt isn't your doom, it's motivation for the success that's waiting for you." The grandfather stood up again, looking out at the sunset that was beginning to paint the sky. "In 20 years, you will look back at this moment and realize it wasn't the worst thing that happened to you. It was the beginning of the best thing that happened to you, but only if you choose to grow through it instead of staying buried in it." Years passed. Michael took his grandfather's words to heart. He started a small business from his basement. It failed. He started another one. It struggled, but survived. He started a third one, and it began to thrive. 10 years later, Michael had built a successful company that employed over 50 people, and whenever a young person came to him discouraged and defeated, he would sit them down and tell them about the seeds and how the choice to grow through difficulty, rather than stay buried by it, made all the difference between a life of safety and a life of significance. And sometimes on quiet evenings, Michael would sit on that same porch where his grandfather had shared that wisdom, watching his own children play under the oak tree, knowing that someday he would pass on the same lesson about growing through the darkness toward the light. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every ending is a new beginning in disguise. Every failure is fertilizer for future success. The question is not whether you will face darkness, it is whether you will choose to grow through it toward the light that is waiting for you.